Order. Clerk, call the roll.
Chairman King.
Here.
Vice Chair Hernandez. Anchia. Darby. Davis. Guerin. Ian. Hall. McLean. Metcalf. Phelan. Raymond. Smithy. Thompson. Turner.
We have a quorum. Good morning, everyone. As a reminder, anyone present wishing to testify before the committee, please register at the kiosk located in the hallways behind the hearing room. If you require assistance in registering or testifying, please contact the committee staff. As stated on the hearing notice, there will be a time limit of 3 minutes per witness during the public testimony period. All right. Chair lays out House Bill 366. Recognizes Speaker Phelan to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the Committee on Public Education for keeping my seat warm for me. I think they just left the premises. But again, thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 366, which is a necessary step towards ensuring transparency and integrity in political advertising in the state of Texas. The rapid advancement of generative artificial intelligence has made it possible to manipulate images, videos, and audio recordings with an unprecedented level of realism. These technologies have been weaponized to mislead voters, distort reality, and falsely portray candidates and office holders in ways that undermine our democratic process. This bill seeks to ensure that when altered or generated content is used in political advertising, and I repeat, political advertising, voters are informed and aware that what they are seeing or hearing has been artificially manipulated. HB 366 requires political advertisements that include altered images, videos, or audio recordings to disclose that the content did not occur in reality. The Texas Ethics Commission will establish the specific requirements on how these disclosures must appear, ensuring they are consistent with existing election laws and campaign finance regulations. Importantly, the bill also establishes a Class A misdemeanor or penalty for violations, reinforcing the seriousness of misleading the public with generated deception. To be clear, this bill is not about limiting free speech or banning the use of AI in political messaging. Candidates and campaigns can still use such content, but they must be upfront with voters when they do so. If we fail to act, we risk allowing a new generation of deceiving attacks to become the new norm in political discourse, further eroding trust in our elections and our public institutions. That said, I do recognize there are portions of the bill that need further clarification and additional considerations. As we move forward, I'm committed to working with committee members, our constituents, stakeholders, and the Texas Ethics Commission to refine and finalize any necessary improvements to ensure the bill is as effective as possible. Members, I am not an expert on AI. By the way, this is the first bill I've laid out in 4 years, so if I'm a little rusty, work with me. But I'm not an expert in AI. If you told me 18 months ago I'd be having a bill before State Affairs dealing with AI, I would ask you what AI is. But it's the new reality in this world. There are bills being filed that are much larger bills, very omnibus bills dealing with AI across the spectrum, but none of them deal with the political advertising. There are a lot of staffers in this Capitol who operate anonymous Twitter accounts. I'm not coming for your memes. If you like your memes, you can keep your memes. This has nothing to do with X or Facebook or anything on social media. I do have quite a few witnesses, but if it would satisfy the chair, if I may bring up the Texas Ethics Commission as a resource witness to explain what is political advertising and what is not political advertising, and who this involves and who this does not involve. So if I may.
Do you want to start with that?
That'd be great.
Speaker? Okay. Okay. Chair calls James Tinley. Mr. Tinley, I show you as General Counsel for the Texas Ethics Commission. Registered as neutral on the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Yes, James Tinley, I'm General Counsel of the Texas Ethics Commission, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
If you could just remind the panel and the audience, what is political advertising? What triggers the election code. Again, this bill is solely within the election code. It has nothing to do with, again, social media. It has nothing to do with someone posting something funny or not funny on the internet. It has to do with what your commission deals with day in, day out on political speech.
Right, and political advertising is a communication that supports or opposes a candidate for nomination or election to public office. Courts have interpreted that support or oppose to include only the functional equivalent of express advocacy or express advocacy itself. So that would be limited to functional equivalent of express advocacy for people running for an election or nomination to an office.
So if someone posts something on the internet, on Twitter, is that something the Ethics Commission will say that is express advocacy, and we need a disclaimer on that meme or picture or whatever that the public may generate?
So, and I should add too. So it's a communication to support or oppose a candidate, essentially, that appears in certain ways. And one of those ways is if it appears on an internet website in the definition. So I think it's possible, right, for certain communications that are expressly advocating, and it depends what the meme is, right? And I wouldn't target memes in particular, but if a candidate, says, vote for me on their social media, that would be a communication on an internet website that would be express advocacy and could be subject to certain disclosure requirements. The Ethics Commission has a rule that says if it's your Twitter account, you don't need to put a disclosure statement on every tweet that you do.
You're speaking to a candidate, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not the general public.
So, yeah, I mean, there is, the way the laws are written, I think maybe if you're going to look at this, I think the definition of political advertising could be addressed as well as a general matter and not specific to your bill, because, it says appears in certain ways. One way in which is a newspaper or broadcast on television for consideration. That is, you're paying the newspaper to carry your ad, not the newspaper's editorial. It's not clear that same restriction that I'm getting paid to post it, right, applies to communications on the internet website. So I think clarity there. I think if you're looking at ways to make sure the bill is perfectly tailored, that would be something to look at.
Sure. Is your agency looking at this new world of generated media, and is that something y'all have talked about, or other states addressing this, to your knowledge?
Many other states are addressing this in other ways, and the federal government as well, even through the FCC, not even specific to elections, just advertising containing this generative AI and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, it's definitely being looked at all over in other jurisdictions. And other jurisdictions have passed legislation similar to this.
And I know there's federal laws that are being considered as well. But one, I guess, more infamous situation was the South Carolina primary, when a voicemail went out to several 100,000 voters in South Carolina with the voice of Joe Biden. It sounded more like Joe Biden than Joe Biden sounded like at the time. And it told people, do not waste your vote on the primary, otherwise you won't be able to vote in the general election, which was obviously not true. But when 100,000 people plus get that voicemail directly sent to their inbox, it may or may not have an impact on the election. And I recall, if I'm not mistaken, that the two firms that collaborated on that scheme were based here in Texas for that AI-generated voicemail that went out. I personally went through a campaign where there was AI-generated or deep fakes. They took my face and put it on the very svelte, very dapper Rafael Anchia on one mailer. And I told him he wore that linen suit much better than I ever would have worn that linen suit. But it's that type of deception. I think when you run for office, we should want the public to have as much truth as possible. And I don't know why anybody would be in favor of deceptive advertising. And so I know in the private sector, there are folks out there, celebrities and folks who have a presence on social media whose voices and likeness is being altered and being used to push products that they don't endorse. And that's deceptive trade, and that shouldn't be allowed, nor should this be allowed in the politics. So what we're trying to do is to keep this within the political advertising world, within the Texas Ethics Commission, and make certain that when these mailers at $20,000 a piece go out, or $25,000 a piece, and they obviously have images that never occurred in reality, that the voters at least know that. There is a bill in the Senate that is much more punitive than this. It was heard last week, not a peep on that, but it's a felony to do what I'm trying to make a misdemeanor, and it applies to much more than just political advertising. And so that's in the Senate, and they've already had a hearing on that, probably coming over to the House. So we need to get ahead of this. We need to make certain that the crime, the punishment fits the crime as well. In my district, Donald Trump was an 82% plus winner, right? I could have very easily, in the waning hours of my campaign, come up with a fake ad of Donald Trump shaking my hand and endorsing me, right? He obviously did not endorse me. Actually, he came at me about 6, 7 times. Still won. But that endorsement means something. So, if you flip the script around and with fake endorsements that look very, very real, that's also not right. It's also deceiving voters. And quite frankly, I don't know if a Class A misdemeanor is enough in the waning hours of campaign, the last 72 hours of campaign, if someone comes in with an AI ad that is deceptive in either way, either negatively or positively, and it changes a $10 million race, I don't know if a Class A misdemeanor is enough. And the folks who are willing to do this don't care about a $500 slap on the wrist. And with all due respect, we know how difficult it is to collect $500 these days from the Ethics Commission once y'all are done finding people. We've already established that in the last hearing. So with that, I appreciate, if any other questions for the witness, we can move on. But I just wanted to establish what is political speech and make certain that this bill only targets those who are paying for ads and running campaigns in a very deceptive manner.
Ms. Thompson?
May I ask the author of the bill a question? May I ask the author of the bill a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Speaker Phelan, it seemed like to me this is a bill that deals with truth in advertisement. Do you have a civil remedy for deceptive trade practice, or deceptive acts?
All we have right now is the Class A misdemeanor, and we have DPS here as well as a resource witness as to how we would prosecute that. That is, I believe 2 years and I believe up to $10,000 fine.
But what would be the civil penalties?
I'm open to civil penalties as well.
Okay.
One second. Let the record reflect that Representative Turner and Representative Gann are now present.
Thank
Mr.
you
Smith.
very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman. Ms. Thompson, I think, makes a good point, is that if you really want to stop this, have a private action where the opponent, like you, in your case, I mean, those pictures are real funny if it's somebody else, but when it's you, it's not all that funny.
Correct.
And, but yeah, you could really stop it with us, because very likely nobody's going to prosecute this. But a civil remedy where your opponent, where you could sue your opponent or whoever ran the ad for civil damages, it seems like that would be the most effective way to stop it.
Excellent. Yeah. Be happy to look at that. Thank you.
Members, further questions? Mr. Raymond?
Thank you, Chairman. To Chairman Smithy's point, could you remind me, I was, at the moment you said that, John, I was trying to remember, there have been moments, and I just don't remember how we get there, after a campaign where I know campaigns have had to pay the opposing candidate some, you remember that? What is that?
Yes, well, there are already in Title 15 a few private causes of action that sort of an opponent in a campaign could pursue for certain
Right,
violations.
give me an
in Title
example.
15.
It's been a while, but I remember there have been a couple of cases where after the election, one candidate had to pay the other candidate, and it wasn't like paying the campaign, it was paying them personally. So do you remember what those circumstances?
Yeah, I
would
mean,
be?
it's in subchapter E, so of Title 15, of Chapter 253, sorry, of the Election Code. And it allows that for a person who knowingly makes or accepts a campaign contribution or makes a campaign expenditure in violation of Chapter 253, they could be civilly liable to the opposing candidate for twice the value of the unlawful contribution or expenditure and reasonable attorney's fees.
Okay, and that's what, and that has happened, at least in sort of recent times, because I can remember, I just can't remember which candidates they were. So it kind of builds on what John says. So we kind of have something already in law that we could build on, right? Just that point anyway, that part.
Thank you. Members, further questions for Mr. Tenney? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Chair calls David Dixon. Major Dixon, the record shows you as Major David Dixon, and you're representing the Texas Department of Public Safety, and is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're neutral on the bill.
Yes, sir.
Please proceed. Are there questions for,
Well, he's a resource witness as to the prosecution side of this. If you have any question for him, otherwise, he was just here for references of how this bill will actually be prosecuted.
questions for this witness?
And, Mr. Chairman, my understanding would be referred to a local district attorney, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
For prosecution, so that's how would, as written right now, that's how the criminal act would be prosecuted. Pardon me? Well, I think let's say if a mail piece hit in 4 different counties, you could effectively use any of those 4 district attorneys, correct?
Yes, sir. I would meet with all 4 to see which venue we wanted to go with. It'd probably be where it was sent from, though. Whatever county it was sent from would probably be the DA that would want to prosecute.
So if it's a P.O. box in Austin, it would be Travis County.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have. That's all I have for the resource witnesses.
Chairman,
Ms. Raymond? Or Ms.
go ahead, John.
Would you have jurisdictional, an ability to put it in a jurisdiction where it would actually get prosecuted? Or would it, I mean, does it have to go where it was mailed from, or if it hit in Tarrant County, could it be prosecuted in Tarrant County even if it had a P.O. box in Austin or Philadelphia?
We would have to meet with the Tarrant County DA, if you're the victim, wherever you're at when you're the victim. So we would have
So
to,
it could be in the victim's county?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Further questions? Ms. Raymond?
That's what I wanted to clarify, because if it came from out of state, then, if the origin, if it originated in Philadelphia, then that would have been a problem. So I think you need to be clear that it could be done where it occurred, or, where it came from.
Again, you'd have to meet with the DA regarding the victim. So you're the victim here in Travis County right now from this scam. So I would meet with the Travis County, even though the violator is in Philadelphia. I'd try to get a charge here in Texas.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Members, further questions of this witness? Thank you, Major. Appreciate you being here. There is an overflow room that is ready, and room 120, if anybody's interested in that. This one? Yeah, okay. Chair calls Renzo Soto. Mr. Soto, the record shows you're you're the Executive Director of Texas and the South TechNet?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And you're neutral on the bill?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. Members, is there any questions for this witness?
Well, you've reviewed the bill, and can you speak to the changes that you've recommended?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, first of all, explain what you do and who you represent. I mean, it's a little it's a little bit more than just a title. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So I do represent TechNet. We represent 96 different member companies across the innovation economy in several fields related to technology, AI being one of them. We appreciate Speaker Feeling for bringing this forward. We're supportive of the goal of this bill. What we are bringing forward are simply belt and suspenders types of amendments, making sure that there's no things such as intermediary liabilities, making sure that prosecution can go after the bad actors who seek to deceive with these ads. And so tightening up the legal standards as well on that end. But other than that, we've got no problems with the bill.
I like the sound of that. We're working on a committee sub, obviously. We don't want to make certain that the entities you represent and some of the biggest social media companies on the planet, correct?
Yes, sir.
We want to make certain that they're not held liable, that the actual candidate or PAC, whoever's generating these ads, paying for these ads, promoting these ads, are the ones that are ultimately responsible. So
Yes, sir.
we're working on that language. We have really 3 small tweaks from you that I appreciate you supporting it once we get those done.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Members, further questions for the witness? Not? Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. Okay. Chair calls Grayson Gee. Right. Mr. Gee, the record shows you're a policy analyst, and you're representing the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and you are for the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
You have 3 minutes.
Great. Well, I'll just give a few oral remarks. Thank you, Chairman King and distinguished members of this committee. My name is Grayson Gee, and I serve as a technology policy analyst at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. I'm here today to testify in support of House Bill 366. I echo many of the comments that were made by the resource witnesses, which this bill addresses the use of artificial intelligence to manipulate media and political advertising by establishing a disclosure requirement to provide clarity to the public when AI is used. Free and fair elections form the bedrock of our constitutional republic. They are the primary mechanism through which citizens exercise their sovereignty and hold their government accountable. When the integrity of election information in the public square is compromised, the very foundation of self-government is threatened. HB 366 addresses one of the most pressing threats to election integrity today, the use of artificial intelligence to create deceptive political content. As technology advances, the barrier to creating convincing fake videos, images, and audio recordings continue to fall. Without proper safeguards, voters may be unable to distinguish between authentic and manipulated content, undermining their ability to make informed decisions at the ballot box. Rather than banning altered media outright, this legislation simply requires disclosure when political advertising contains artificially generated or manipulated content. By requiring transparency rather than prohibition, this bill allows free expression while ensuring voters have the context they need to evaluate political messages. As we've already witnessed in recent elections across the country, several of which were alluded to earlier, AI-generated deepfakes can spread rapidly and cause significant confusion. This bill's simple disclosure requirement creates minimal burden while providing protection to election integrity. When we analyzed this bill at the foundation, we did come across a few questions, though, which do merit additional consideration. Some of which being the introduced version of the bill does not include exemptions for satire. The Texas Public Policy Foundation would support providing clear exemptions for political speech that is satirical, following longstanding legal precedent and the American political tradition. And consistent with other sections in the election code, which this bill amends, we'd like to see the criminal penalties be changed to civil penalties to align with other instances where disclosure is not complied with by a candidate or campaign. We understand that there will be a committee substitute, and we are grateful to Speaker Phelan and his staff for their openness to working with us to address these and other considerations. But to conclude, elections are not merely procedural exercises. They are the manifestation of our commitment to self-governance. When information in the electoral marketplace is manipulated without disclosure, we undermine the very purpose of democratic elections. HB 366 provides a sensible approach to balancing the need for transparency while ensuring that Americans' freedom of expression is protected.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
your
Gee.
consideration.
Members, there are questions for this witness? Mr. Phelan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gee, thank you for being here. Appreciate you and working with my staff and myself on perfecting this bill. No problem with the satire. We've already talked about satire and cartoons and all that stuff that kind of comes through political mail and advertising, and we're working on tightening that up as well. I would just say that if it's satire, if it's funny satire, it should be fine. If it's lame, maybe you should get sued. I mean, at least be good about it, you know? You're part of a think tank, and I'm sure you look at other states, and I've asked the Ethics Commission. I know this is being addressed across the country right now, and again, at the federal level. What have you seen in other states, how they've handled this? What's the good, bad, and the ugly, if you can, if you know that?
You are right to suggest that other states are handling it. I can't speak immediately to that, but I'd be more than happy to get back to you with some analysis on what other states are doing.
And I'm not saying Texas wants to be like other states, but it bears looking at what they've done and what's worked and what has not worked. And we're only in for every other year, so I'm sure someone's already addressed this. So, with that being said, that's all the questions I have. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Thompson?
Do you know what other states may have laws that they implemented like this?
I do not know off the top of my head
Could
at
you
this
give me that
point.
information?
Yes, ma'am. Be more than happy to follow up.
Would your organization be supportive of punitive damages in civil actions?
I will go
you
back
check
to
on
our
that,
office to check on that and get back with you.
Please,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Raymond?
Yeah, so, how would you feel, so the point you're making, I think, in your testimony is you're okay with deceptive advertising like this, right? Let's AI generated or whatever, as long as it's clear to the voter or the people receiving the information that it's not real, right? So if somebody got a phone call, it said something like, this is Donald J. Trump, Dade Phelan's a great guy, I love him, I think he's the best, maybe the best speaker ever, I'm not sure, something like that. And then said, and then said, I'm just kidding, it's not really Donald J. Trump, but if it were, So then you would be okay with something like that because it's sort of the disclaimer that it's not real?
Well, I think following the long storied American political tradition of satire and political cartoons, as we grow into this new environment of technologically manipulated media, I think what this bill seeks to do, providing transparency and clarity about when those type of things are used, that's appropriate. Speech is fundamental and is protected by the Constitution. And so making sure that the guardrails are sufficient to protect that fundamental liberty while also providing
again,
transparency and clarity.
Right, so you would, and I'm asking because I think it's, if we're gonna do it, I wish we would do it as right as possible, right? And so, TPPF, so let's say whoever you consider the most liberal member of the House of Representatives, and I'm sure you consider some members, probably not me, but some members, some Democrats to be very liberal. And so let's say they did some advertising that said, in a very sort of happy way, the TPPF, the Texas Public Policy Foundation, they've always supported me. They're great. I love them because they've supported my campaign. They're supporting my campaign. I'm just kidding. But if they were, I know that if they really looked at my campaign, they'd support me because I'm a great, and the TPPF really likes my record in the House. You'd kind of be okay with that because they're sort of disclaiming that it's not real, but, so you're okay with that?
Well,
and I'm asking because I may have to use that line, next year if I get a general election opponent, I may have to, so.
Well, in that case, I would question if this bill applies because the bill would be specifically related to images that are manipulated to represent something in
Well,
fact,
so you're not going to
which
make me
is
do my
which
Trump
didn't
again,
happen.
are you? So let's say Trump said.
Please don't.
Let's say Trump said, well, you shouldn't have said that, Chairman. I mean, do you like Trump or not?
I like him better than you at this moment, so please move on. Move on.
So if you had Donald Trump saying the TPPF's a great the TPPF is a great organization, I love, and they're supporting you know, liberal candidate number one or whatever, then it's okay. As long as they say, well, it's not really Trump. But, you know, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get to where.
Yes, sir.
Where we actually do get to where the speaker is trying to get. I know it's threading the needle.
Yeah.
But because to say, you know, satire and all that, I mean, we can satire all day long, man, and, you know, and it'd be really bad for the candidate, be misleading and be bad. I mean, the bill right now as it's written is leaving it up to the Ethics Commission to decide what that disclaimer looks like, right? And so, you know, I guess I would like for you all to think about, if you support what he's trying to do here, let's make it meaningful.
Yes,
You
sir.
see what I mean?
Yes, sir. Thank you
All
for
right.
that.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Members, are there questions for the witness? Seeing none? Mr. Gee, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair calls Andrew Cates.
Morning.
Okay. Let the record reflect that Representative Hall is now with us. All right. The record shows you are Andrew Cates. You're representing yourself,
Correct.
and you are for the bill. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Andrew Cates. I used to be a lobbyist. That may be why I look a little familiar. But after about 14, 15 years, I, thank God, let it go. I'm no longer a lobbyist. I'm really just here because I'm a nerd about this stuff. I'm an expert in campaign finance and lobby law. Wrote a book on it, whatever. So to be honest, I wrote a script last night, but I'm probably just going to shoot from the cuff to answer some of the questions that have been going on. I think I'm mostly here because I showed up to Representative Capriglione's select committee in April about AI and sounded the alarm about a lot of this stuff, especially AI in elections. You know, the feds were mentioned a little while ago. The federal government, the cavalry is not coming. The FCC and the Federal Election Commission are still in a battle over who actually has the authority to regulate AI in elections. And so we are looking at a patchwork across the country of different states. The issue as I see it is that while we have a true source of communication statute in Chapter 55 or 255 of the Election Code, that law as it was passed in 2019, specifically around deepfakes, is already out of date. It doesn't talk about any other types of altered media other than video. And these AI models have gotten a lot more realistic over time, just in the last 5 years. And people being duped by them, those examples are stacking up really fast. HB 366 takes a necessary step, even if it is just a little bit of a small one, towards reining it in. It doesn't criminalize the speech itself, and it doesn't criminalize memes, political memes like that, like Twitter has been saying over the last few days. It literally just adds to the existing requirement to add another disclaimer to say you used AI. That's about it. 19 other states, somebody asked about other states, 19 other states have already passed something like this, and a dozen more are working on it right now during their legislative sessions. Did that go off? Okay. Big tech so a lot of big tech companies, Google, Facebook, are kind of already starting to roll out this requirement anyway in paid advertisements on their platforms, so it's not that, tough of a pill to swallow. I think it was Representative Raymond asked about the great impression, by the way, about these ads saying, he's the best, whatever. One thing to remember and consider is that this is about political ads for campaigns and not during legislative cycles. So right now you're not technically running for office. You're not campaigning, and so these would be legislative ads. So this wouldn't apply right now. This is about affecting an election. I did also want to mention when the DPS representative was up here asking about going straight to the DA, there was a recent opinion out of the Court of Criminal Appeals called In Re Charette, C-H-A-R-E-T-T-E, and it basically went directly at the Ethics Commission on this. I'm sorry, can I keep going or?
I'm
Okay.
Mr. Cates, thank you for testimony. I would like you to finish your thought.
Thank you. So this case was directed right at the Ethics Commission, and it was basically saying, from the Court of Criminal Appeals, saying that you have to exhaust your administrative remedies before you go straight to the DA. And so you have to go through the Ethics Commission complaint process first before you can go to a DA. I know that they recently changed up some rules internally so that they can fast track that. But either way, you can't just go straight to a DA. The DA is going to have to accept that complaint and turn around and go right to the Ethics Commission and get essentially permission to prosecute. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was the penalty, Class A misdemeanor. One of the things, and I got a lot of heat on Twitter for it myself when I testified in the AI committee, one of the things that I recommended was bumping it up to a felony. Because in my experience with clients, with the stakeholder community, the one thing that everybody remembers is that you cannot give a corporate check to a candidate because it's a felony, because it scares the crap out of people. And if you really want to scare people on this and try to shut this down, in my experience, that's the way to do it. I do know that the guardrails on this are tough because of the First Amendment, but to me, and I said this to members of the Texas Supreme Court recently when I spoke with them, that's their problem. And I don't need to tell you what your job is, but your job is to pass the bill. Their job is to figure out if it's going to survive strict scrutiny in the court system on the First Amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Cates.
Yes, sir.
Members, are questions for Mr. Cates? Mr. Anchia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cates, quick question about the exhaustion of administrative remedies. Really two questions. The first one is, can the Ethics Commission waive the administrative process and allow the DA to move quickly? Do they have the ability to do that on their own?
Yeah, so that was, right after the case came out, they passed basically an emergency rule, and they have re-extended it, and I think made it, Jim might be able to tell us for sure, but I think they made it permanent to essentially fast-track that, yeah.
Got it. And that answers my second question as well, which is sometimes a requirement to exhaust one's administrative remedies can cause delays to where, ultimately the relief sought is unhelpful because so much time has passed. So
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I was with the Nurses Association for 5 years, so going through that regulatory process of complaints for nurses, I get it in terms of exhaustion of remedies. It takes a long time.
it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, Mr. Darby?
Yes, thank you, Andrew, for your testimony, and thanks to Speaker Phelan for this bill. Clearly, I was victimized as he was in this last election process. And to Representative Thompson's concerns and Speaker Phelan's concerns, we need to stop this, and I understand First Amendment. But what are other states doing in addition, perhaps increasing the penalty to a felony? Do we have any sort of civil process injunctive relief, for example, libel, slander?
Well,
I mean, if we want to put some teeth into it, allow the candidate to stop it locally.
Yeah.
I mean, to file a proceeding that will bring the action under the scrutiny of a local court.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
Well,
what are other states doing in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Texas was way ahead of the pack on the deepfake bill that we had. Seeing a kind of a layout of the map of the U.S., in terms of a heat map, Texas is like dark red or whatever it would be as compared to everybody else, is almost transparent in terms of what we've got compared to everybody else. And so we jumped out ahead, but then technology caught up, and that's kind of how it always goes. Technology usually outpaces regulation anyway. The issue with libel and slander, and I mean, y'all know this, you're all just set to a higher standard overall. It's really, really, really hard to affect any kind of slander, libel, defamation case against or from a public official on somebody because you're a public official. There's just a higher bar to jump to. So, most people are kind of moving in this direction of requiring at least a disclaimer, if not, outright banning it. But those outright bans are getting popped in the courts for First Amendment because it is tough. I mean, it's, you have to show a compelling government interest and make sure it's narrowly tailored to fit that interest. And I mean, the compelling interest, I think, is pretty obvious. But whether or not it's narrowly tailored, I mean, is really just up to the judge that you get.
Well, thank you for your testimony, and thanks to the speaker for bringing this bill. This is important. Everyone on this dais is an elected official. Every one of us recognizes that we are public. But when you start seeing these type of vicious ads that not only attack our credibility, but our families, our children, our community, when these deep fakes are accusing us of lying and betraying the values of our community, and there's no remedy associated with that, I'm angered by that, and I think everybody on this dais is angered by it, and we need to stop it.
Well, and I don't know how you stop this, but, I mean, I don't know the percentages, but, what happens if that person that is deep faking that is on a bot farm in Russia? I mean, how do you stop that?
That's why some sort of civil process to stop the dissemination of that information would be the only real remedy.
Yeah,
We're not going to be able to get a pack out of Virginia
right.
that proliferated our mailboxes and airways over issues that were distorted.
You gotta figure out long arm jurisdiction at that point and all kinds of stuff.
But we have to have, and we have to put our heads together to figure out a remedy that allows where this type of disinformation is being proliferated. We have to continue to look for remedies to try to stop it or curb it.
I'm here to help.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Cates,
Yes, sir.
could you mentioned a specific case
Yeah,
a few
so
moments
it's-
ago. Would you be willing to provide the committee with the actual citation of that case?
Sure, yeah,
Thank you
I'll send it
very
to you.
much. Remember, there are other questions, Mr. McQueenie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. In your opinion, would it be beneficial to get in the weeds to specify a font size on this disclosure for printed media, where we're really getting in the, would that be beneficial in your opinion?
Not in statute, probably. I think the Ethics Commission can knock that out pretty easily. From what I remember, there's not a specific font size in federal law in the CFRs. That's directed by the FEC. So I'd say leave it to rule, honestly.
Thanks. Thank you. Members, other questions? Mr. Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Case, couple questions. We talked a little bit about, we talked a lot about AI deepfakes this morning. The way the bill is written, it would, to my reading, it seems like it would also apply to kind of pre-AI
Photoshop. Yeah.
embellishment, Photoshop, stuff like that. Is that your reading of it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then the discussion about satire, and I think that's an important point. How do you get around someone does a deep fake or a Photoshop or whatever, alters an image, recording, the defense is, well, it was just satire. This is,
That,
I wasn't being malicious, I was just satirical.
yeah, I mean, I heard that earlier, and I'm certainly empathetic to the desire to add stuff like that in, because, I mean, satire, false speech, anonymous speech, anything like that related to politics has all been protected by the courts over the years. So I'm empathetic to it, but, I mean, like I said, I would probably just leave it to the courts. I would leave the satire out, because the more you put in there, the more loopholes you create, and people are going to exploit them.
All right, thank you.
Members? Mr. Fegan?
I'll just add, and thank you, by the way, for being here. Appreciate you working with our office on this, and you clearly an expert in the field, and I look forward to a future conversation with you. Regarding the satire, I will say there was one mailer that was sent out on Christmas Eve in my campaign saying that I was canceling Christmas in favor of Ramadan, using my face, my campaign logo. I got phone calls from, my friendly, devout Catholic friends that I've grown up with my entire life, wondering what's going on with Christmas. After I got my MasterCard bill, kind of wish we did cancel Christmas, to be honest with you. But being said, they were kind enough to put "This is satire" in probably 2-point font
Yeah.
on the very last page. Even with my glasses, I couldn't read.
Yeah.
So, I want to work with the Ethics Commission. What Mr. McQueenie said is right on. It can't be so small and innocuous that no one sees it until the damage has been done. I'm fine with stamping in 72-inch font across the front of it, fake news, on everything they put out. but I know that's probably not realistic with the Ethics Commission. So we'll have to work with the agency on that. But yes, I mean, slapping this as satire on the very bottom doesn't do much if no one can read it.
Agreed.
That's all I have.
Members, further questions for this witness? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Cates.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 366? Hearing none, Chair recognizes Speaker Phelan to close on House Bill 366.
I appreciate Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and the general public here today. This is something that's a work in progress. Again, I don't think anyone in this room is an expert on AI. It changes, probably as we speak, but it is the new frontier. It's obviously a new frontier in politics. I will say in some of the ads that I experienced over the last 2 years, my wife said, "You've never looked better in these ads." Like, somehow they made your forehead a little bit smaller in this ad, and you look pretty good. But even that is fake. And that, maybe we'll never do a photo shoot again as an elected official, which I hate. I mean, I'll be honest, I had to put on makeup to do my last photo shoot. Who likes doing that? Don't answer that, but it's not me. But I may never have to do it again because I can just generate it AI. It can just be fake. And that's still not right. You're still misleading the public. It's not you. And even if the ads are positive, I think the public needs to know that these are computer-generated images and not anything that happened in reality. And so we need to draw a distinct line in the sand and make certain whatever we pass here meets court muster. So again, we'll bring this bill back as a committee substitute, working with stakeholders, and hopefully get something on the House floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. If there's, if there's no objection, House Bill 366 will be left pending at this time. Is there objection? Chair hears none. House Bill 366 is left pending. Chair lays out House Bill 912 and recognizes Speaker Moody to explain the bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. Every time I hear Andy Cates speak, I'm always confused as to how we attended the same law school. He's so much smarter than me. At any rate, this bill is a little less involved, and some things that have been done in other areas of Texas. Has to do with El Paso Electric. This bill is related to non-ERCOT areas, and this is opening a statute that's been in place since 2011. Bill is fairly limited. What we're trying to do is open the door for the development of distributed renewable generation alternatives and financial compensation options moving forward for El Paso Electric, and allows for the evaluation of those very alternatives through the regulatory proceedings at PUC. So it mandates no actual outcome. However, it allows the utility to explore different options. And in my conversations with the utility, one of the ideas that has come forward is that they can do a value of solar study or an analysis, which then, through their evaluation, could actually provide more benefits to those with solar. And if they wanted to take that option forward to the PUC, then they would do that. And again, in a contested rate case, you're going to have all the parties at the table and have a discussion. So the bill itself doesn't mandate a particular outcome for this type of energy, but it does give options for the utility to explore the best way to do that for all the ratepayers in our area. Because also we do have an outweighed pressure on those that are not utilizing these types of forms of energy, and so we want to also give options for those ratepayers as well. So this opens the door for that conversation. It mandates no particular outcome in that conversation, and if something was to come forward, we're subject to going forward to the PUC like everybody else. So that's what this bill does. Pretty simple and straightforward, and happy to answer any questions. I do think there are some witnesses here to discuss the bill further. Thank you, sir.
Chair calls Camille Cook.
I'm representing Public Citizen Texas. Yes, thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Camille Cook. I work at Public Citizen Texas. I appreciate the opportunity to testify on HB 912. As it stands, we are opposed to this bill as written because it allows El Paso Electric to propose an alternative approach to compensate for solar generation instead of net metering without establishing a standard for ensuring fair compensation for solar owners. So Texas utilities already implement anti-solar rates and fees in the absence of regulation. In 2024, we published a study of solar compensation rates and fees at 127 of the 141 non-competitive electric utilities in Texas. And the results show that when utilities move away from net metering, they nearly always adopt an avoided cost rate to compensate customers for solar energy sent to the distribution grid that is substantially lower than the retail rate for electricity consumed from the grid, which is net metering. And El Paso Electricity already has discriminatory fees for customers with solar. As it stands, they have a $30.25 per month minimum bill for residential customers with solar. And given this pattern of proposing and implementing anti-solar rates and fees, we don't believe that El Paso Electric would replace net metering with an alternative that is fair to customers. Unfair solar rates and fees discourage solar adoption, and distributed customer-sided solar is valuable. And then a sound methodology should underpin these rate changes. If an alternative approach is being proposed, we believe it should be based on a thorough analysis of the value of solar to the local utility and community. A value of solar study is valuable. We just believe that it should ensure that the new rate is valuable for customers with solar as well as the grid and the utility writ large. So in all, we ask you not to vote HB 912 out of committee because there's a strong likelihood that the bill would negatively affect El Paso Electric customers, especially since there's no language that ensures that their interests are considered. El Paso already has some of the most rooftop solar in any city in the country, and rolling back net metering could greatly slow the expansion of rooftop solar and ultimately harm the utility and customers with and without solar. That's all I've got to say on that, if there are any
Thank you.
questions. Thank you.
Members, are there questions for Mr. Cook? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you so much.
Chair calls Daniel Perez. Mr. Perez, we show you as representing El Paso Electric Company,
Yes, sir.
and you are for the bill, is that correct?
That's correct.
Please proceed, you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members, appreciate your time this morning. My name's Daniel Perez. As Speaker Pro Tem Moody stated, this bill only applies to El Paso. And really, it's as more and more distributed generation comes online in our system, we really need flexibility to engage those customers differently than we did when this was passed back in 2011. As the previous gentleman just stated, we do have quite a bit of rooftop solar in our service territory, and we see it as a resource. So we really just are looking for options to really adapt to the emerging technologies that we have coming online, right? So again, back in 2011, you were talking about more folks had rooftop solar. Now you have distributed batteries. You have folks using their electric vehicles as batteries. You might have, modular nuclear sometime soon. And again, unless we add those words to the statute to allow us to go to the PUC with a proposal, we really have no other way of engaging customers. So again, as the previous gentleman stated, we would more than likely hire an industry expert, a distributed generation expert to do a value of solar, but we have we're not sure yet as to how we would proceed at this juncture. It's really just we're seeking flexibility, and with that, I'll open it up for questions that you may have for us.
Thank you for testimony. Members, are there questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 912? Hearing none, Chair recognizes Speaker Moody to close on House Bill 912.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members, and I appreciate the testimony from public citizen in recognizing the how much El Paso has gravitated towards solar. That's based on a lot of conversations I've been having with the electric company for over a decade, pushing them to bring rebates to our community, coming to the table to expand solar in El Paso. I'm an advocate for expanding this for our population. And the reason it is expanded is because of the work that we've done with the electric company to push them to be able to expand this resource in El Paso. But as the landscape changes, we have to continue to account for all ratepayers in the region. And that's what this does. It opens the door, and you can count on me, as I've done for over a decade, to hold the utilities' feet to the fire to make sure that people are treated fairly. That's what I've always done in my interaction with utility, and that's what I always will do. But we can't be stuck in a statute written in 2011 when distributed energy is the landscape is changing daily. So we have to be able to shift and change with that in a way that works for everybody. And if there's a proposed change after an analysis is done, we're going to be back at the PUC, which is where we always go. This is a very structured process, and it's one where everybody has a seat at the table. And so appreciate the concerns, but I don't see the concern with opening the opportunity to have a conversation about this and studying this so that we can figure out what to do as we move forward. So,
thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
1 minute, Speaker Field.
This is kind of random, and you may not know the answer to this, so
Oh, good.
I'll preface it with that. Isn't there a unique advantage to El Paso having solar, given the time change? I remember reading something in Texas Monthly about how that area of the state, being this an hour ahead of us, the rest of the state, and when folks get home, what would be 4 o'clock in Austin, in El Paso it's 4 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock in Austin, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So
I just went through both driving through the time and the time change. So it's like I went through a 2-hour
Yeah.
time change this week, not a 1-hour one.
maybe you haven't been home enough this session. But I just remember, and maybe there's an expert can explain this, but the fact that everyone gets home in El Paso would be 4 o'clock in the rest of the state. 5 o'clock in El Paso, 4 o'clock here, or vice versa. Pardon
Other
me.
way, yeah.
That the electricity is not being used from a solar standpoint because people aren't home yet, and that can be shared with the rest of the state. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah,
it's called like an armadillo curve is what they called it.
Yeah, I know that we have analysis of utilization that I can supply to the committee, but yeah, there is delay out there a little bit. We call ourselves the Sun City for a reason, right? And we're trying to harness the power of solar as best we can. But as that happens, there's still infrastructure issues that have to be addressed through the utility, and then you have those customers that are not utilizing solar. So what do we do? How do we handle that across the board that's fair for everybody?
I just think the point of the article, and I'll find it for you and send it to you, but the point of the article is there's no better place in the state of Texas than El Paso for solar.
Oh, I agree with that, and that's what we've been pushing since before. I'd say probably 2009 when I first got here. This was one of our biggest pushes, is that we were not harnessing the power of solar energy, and energy diversity in this state is what we should be looking at, right? That's oil and gas in some areas, that's wind generation in others, solar in others. I know we're going to talk about nuclear this session. All of as diverse as this state is with its people, we should be as diverse in our approach to energy generation, and solar is a huge part of that for our part of the state. You've got the wind belt, we're in the solar belt, and so anything we can do to expand that is what we want to do. So I think concerns about this bill are fairly misplaced when that's been our goal since I got to the legislature, is to figure out better ways to expand this, but working with the utility to do that in a fair way across the board. So that's my commitment.
Mr. Darby.
Just one question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your language in the bill, distributed renewable generation or a qualifying facility, does that include batteries, which would aid for dispatchability?
I don't have the definitions here. I don't know, but I'll circle back
I think
with
the
you.
El Paso guy behind you is shaking.
Is he
his
saying
head,
yes or
but-
no? You tell me. You can see him over my shoulder.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because clearly part of the puzzle would be to add batteries as a.
Yeah, I
essential
think as he
component
testified
of
to,
backup.
there's a whole bunch of things that are going on that weren't accounted for back in 2011. So we're trying to capture all of those in a broader conversation and how we address that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Anchia?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaker Phelan alluded to this in his questions, but you have a lot of sunshine. You also don't have a lot of water, right? So solar is a good energy source that doesn't rely on, or doesn't require as much water as other energy sources to deploy.
Correct.
I'm reading here that for every 5 megawatts of solar, you can power almost 2,500 homes in El Paso. The criticism, I was curious about the criticism by Public Citizen related to net metering. But I want to understand it from your perspective, and you alluded to this, but I just want to punctuate it through this question. Nothing in your bill prevents El Paso Electric from having a more aggressive net metering program, does it?
No, and I think I think what people see is that a possible outcome is that El Paso Electric could decide to go away from net metering and do something different. Now, of course, that's going to go through the PUC process, right, and the contested case process. But
And just with respect to
Yeah.
PUC, the Office of Public Utility Counsel that represents consumers is at the table in any PUC rate making, right?
Correct.
So you have that additional layer of protection.
yeah, and as we've emerged, as El Paso Electric emerged from bankruptcy and has gone through a couple of rate cases in the last several years, the number of participants at the table has been diverse, and all interests have been represented. I think that your point is well taken, and as we talked about earlier, the analysis that we would undertake could end up in a net benefit to solar customers in other ways. So what the solution is not on the table in this bill. It is the opportunity to discuss what are better solutions. And all I can commit to is I will always be an advocate for the consumer in El Paso, but those consumers are consuming in different ways, and we need to figure out how to work together to do that the best for everybody.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Speaker.
Thank you. Members, further questions? Now you can close.
I close.
Thank you. If there's no objection, House Bill 912 will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. House Bill 912 is left pending. Which one? All right. Chair lays out House Bill 470, recognizes Chairman Tepper to explain the bill.
Good morning, Chairman and committee. Thank you for allowing me to lay out House Bill 470. In 2020, the Austin City Council drastically reduced the budget for the Austin Police Department, which resulted in the department having less resources to combat crime. As many people know, crime in the city of Austin is out of control. According to the U.S. News and World Report, both the violent crime rate and property crime rate in Austin were higher than the national average in 2022. According to a KXAN article, which is local news, published in July 2024, the Austin Police Department continued to face staffing shortages with over 300 vacancies and response times exceeding 10 minutes, greatly exceeding 10 minutes from my experience. House Bill 470 seeks to reduce crime in the most prominent corridor of downtown Austin by extending the boundaries of the current Capitol complex along Congress Avenue. This would give the Texas Department of Public Safety primary responsibility for law enforcement and security services within the expanded boundaries. The bill would expand the Capitol complex boundaries to include the following land: north by the outside curb of 10th Street and east by the outside curb of Brazos Street, south by Ladyburg Lake, and west by the outside curb of Colorado Street. We will have a map for you. One of the witnesses will provide a map. Under current law, the City of Austin and DPS must execute an agreement that defines their respective responsibilities regarding traffic, parking enforcement, and general security. My bill provides that this agreement must include responsibilities for public safety and law enforcement. The bill would require the agreement to include a formula for calculating DPS's annual cost of providing law enforcement and public safety services to the Capitol complex. The comptroller would require to withhold from the City of Austin a portion of their municipal sales taxes based on DPS's annual cost of providing this law enforcement within the Capitol complex. The comptroller would then credit those funds to the general revenue fund for the use of DPS. Under current law, the Capitol complex only applies to property to the extent the property is owned by or under control of the state. Although I am waiting to receive a committee substitute from Legislative Council, I intend to strike this phrase, meaning DPS would have a primary responsibility for law enforcement and security services within the entire geographic boundaries of the Capitol complex, regardless of whether certain property is owned by or under the control of the state. There's a lot of private property down there. I also intend to introduce a change that ensures the City of Austin does not redirect funds that it currently provides to the Austin Police Department as a result of this bill. They can't defund the police department. The changes will also ensure that the bill does not affect the city's duty to fulfill the obligations of their labor contract with its police officers, including its obligations related to a meet and confer agreement. Congress Avenue is a front door to the state of Texas. We can't let it decay anymore and continue to watch its deterioration. I am open for questions.
You have a question?
Yes, one.
Ms. Thompson.
Do you represent Austin?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Thank you.
Mr. Raymond.
Thank you, Chairman.
And just to clarify, I'm a state representative. I believe I have input into the entire state of Texas. Yes,
We
sir.
are all the state representatives.
That's correct.
First of all, I agree with you. That you're right. You do have the right to put forth proposals that affect the whole state or any part of it. But you're working on a substitute, and I don't know if you mentioned this, but I'd like to take a closer look at exactly what that map looks like, and would you consider making it bigger? The area that it would cover?
Representative, this has been attempted before in various stages. They were much broader from what I had seen, and so I am attempting to narrow the scope to Congress Avenue. Again, it is essentially the main front door of the state of Texas to the Capitol building, and I'd like to start there.
But you would be open if the House would be if this got to the floor and there was the will there to make it a little bigger, maybe not the whole city? Or do you really want to keep it to where you've got it right now?
Like everything else, it depends.
Okay.
Thank you. Members, other questions? Mr. Tepper? Okay. We'll call you back shortly. You have a few witnesses. Okay. Chair calls Lisa Davis. Chief Davis, we show you as Lisa Davis, Chief Police, City of Austin, and you were representing the City of Austin,
Yes, sir.
and you were against the bill.
Okay. I'm against the bill. That's correct.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you, Chair. I appreciate the time and committee members. I am against this bill. I think it is, I've been here for 6 months as Austin's police chief, and we have seen significant strides in those 6 months. When you're looking at the data used for looking at this bill, I believe it's from 2022. And when you're looking across the country in 2022, every major city was up in crime. Austin has made, again, significant strides. What I've done, our homicides are down 30% year to date. Our violent crime in the downtown area is down 15%. So this narrative that Austin is dangerous is not accurate. And when you look at morale, I was brought here to address morale, retention, and recruitment. This happens, you're going to see morale go down for these officers. They are a department from 2020 that is traumatized, and quite honestly, there's some trauma bonding within the department, and this would further erode morale within the organization. And so I would hate to see that, because again, we are making some great strides. And again, I've been here for 6 months, and we're only turning more. The ship is turning, community policing is coming up, crime is going down. And so that is why I'm against this bill.
Members' questions for the witness, Ms. Thompson?
Congratulations on your 6 months.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let me ask you a question. Does the city of Austin host South by Southwest?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you all been the host of that function for several years?
We have, and we've had no issues at all.
And what is normally the population of persons, just an estimate of people who attend that over the period of time that they're here?
I think it goes into the millions.
I mean, just give me a ballpark.
I'm going to say 1.2 million.
And has that been a decrease in population?
No, ma'am.
People are still attending that function annually?
That's correct.
It's an annual function, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they attend that annually?
Annually, yes.
And your city is not so dangerous until that keeps them, deter them from attending that function, right?
Austin is a safe city, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chief Davis, it's great to have you here. I always like to see women in law enforcement, so welcome. I see here in your prepared remarks that you mentioned that DPS already has jurisdiction to enforce laws anywhere in the state, including Congress Avenue, and that you already have, you're already working with them closely. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, DPS, we work closely together, and whether it's, and I understand the history here. I'm not naive enough to think that there's not been a history here, so I understand that. But I am here to, again, we are turning the page. We have new, a new city manager, a new city staff here, a new police chief, and things are turning. I like and appreciate DPS, and I see us working together more closely in the future on other issues throughout the city. But this area is Austin's. And again, you talk about taking this from them. We are eroding, again, the morale of these officers and what we're trying to do here. And if I can get in real quick, one of the things that I've also done in the downtown, when I got hired from Kurt Watson, during that interview, he made it known that downtown and this area were important to him, and it needed to be important to the next chief. I have increased by 40% the number of officers that are downtown in this area by a new unit that's been arranged here, Downtown Austin Response Team. And that is a team that's dealing with a lot of issues, whether it's DUI, problem solving, looking at place network investigations, all of these after-hours clubs. We've closed down 4 after-hour locations here. So good work is being done here. But I work closely with DPS, and I value their partnership for sure.
So you would be able to continue doing
Oh,
that
absolutely.
without having to expand
Absolutely.
this jurisdiction? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, thank you for being here. So you said that the data referenced by the bill author was from 2022, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So since 2022, so you said you've been here 6 months, so
Right.
Austin has a new police chief. Since 2022, I believe Austin has a new mayor, is that accurate?
That's correct.
And Austin has a new city manager since that time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it accurate to say, I think it said in the bill layout that crime in Austin is out of control?
That is
Do
not
you think
accurate.
that's a fair characterization?
No, I do not.
And in fact, the data shows crime is declining in Austin?
That's correct.
Okay. And you referenced national trends. I'm from the North Texas area. My recollection is that in 2022, most of our major cities in North Texas had seen an uptick in certain crimes, including violent crime, and that's been declining since then. And you're saying that Austin has experienced a similar downward trend in serious crimes.
That is correct.
Okay. The bill also contemplates a formula that should be calculated to, if I'm understanding correctly, that the state will send the city of Austin a bill for DPS taking on these responsibilities, which, as you say, they already have the ability to do this or to work with you, or the state will withhold local sales tax revenue. But either way, the state would charge the city. Is Austin like most other major cities where public safety is the biggest portion of the city's annual budget?
That's right.
Okay. So a hit to revenue to the city, I assume, is going to disproportionately hurt your public safety budget. Would I be correct in assuming that?
Yeah, I think it's quite accurate because, again, it is the biggest part of the budget when you're looking at the funds. I believe looking at the math, doing the math of what this would take, in the millions, and that would come from somewhere. And money's already been removed from the Austin Police Department. We do not need more.
Okay. So a bill purportedly about public safety is actually going to hurt public safety.
It will absolutely hurt the Austin Police Department, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Raymond?
Thank you, Chairman. How long have you been in law enforcement?
32 years.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You don't look like you've been in law enforcement 32 years, but
Thank you, sir.
good for you. You know, and thank you to Chairman Turner for making the point I'd like to get to a little bit. First of all, let me ask you this. Were this bill to pass, as you and your team read it, would your police officers still be able to make arrests in the area that's covered in this bill?
So I think this is
If they
the,
saw something,
yeah, and so I think this is the ironic part of this, right? So we already work with DPS, and if I were to call them today and ask for help somewhere, they would give it to me, and we would work together to address problems. And we are certainly moving more into that in that direction. But the thing is, yes, Austin Police Department would still respond to assist, but then we would be giving money.
well,
This money would be taken
so
away.
If we could keep it to the question, would you still have jurisdiction to make arrests, et cetera?
Yes, we would still have jurisdiction.
Okay, good. So I guess I'll look at it a little differently. Were I you, I'd be welcoming this with a caveat that didn't take money away from you. So, you know, I'm going to reach out to the author after this hearing and suggest that I'll support this bill. But what I would like to see is that we don't take money from you. We've got plenty of money in our state budget, I believe, to cover this without taking money from the city. If, and I mean if, the city will then use that money to expand what they do in terms of law enforcement capabilities through other parts of the city. That would be, you may not agree with it, you may be forced, maybe you can't agree with it, but that's not a bad deal. If they're willing to cover an area where you would still have the ability to go make arrests should any of your police officers be there, or if DPS calls you because there's some big incident going on and they need help and you guys respond and you have, again, you'd have that jurisdiction. But if you didn't lose any money, right, and that it actually allowed you to use the money that you would be getting to expand your capabilities in the other parts of the city. Seems to me that you may or may not want to comment on that, but I think that's a good deal.
I would like to comment on that.
Would it be better? Would it be a better deal than what's being proposed now?
I don't, what I would say to you is, and with all due respect, because I truly do respect you, but DPS has authority already as well.
I understand, but
So-
I understand that. So the bill is flipping it. It's flipping where they're the sort of more express authority or whatever, however you want to describe it. So what I'm suggesting to you is to do it in a way that you don't lose money, because when you say, you know, or Mr. Turner said, and I know he just stepped out, that this would be undermining or undercutting because it'd be cutting resources from APD. What I'm proposing to you, and I'd like to discuss with the author later, is that we don't take away the money, but only of the money. Because believe me, if this bill passes and it came to pass, that then we would divert some of those monies back to the state, if you will. The city council won't like it, but if we passed a bill that said you don't lose money, you still keep that money, they'll use it for something else, unless we make it clear in the bill that it cannot be used for something else. It can only be used to expand your capabilities. It's a good deal.
So, sir, I guess I'm thinking in regards to these officers, not the political of it's Austin City Council, it's this or that. I'm thinking about the morale of these officers and you removing an area of responsibility from them. That's exactly how,
I don't agree
as
with-
their police chief, that's
I
how
don't-
that would be perceived.
I don't agree, with all due respect, Chief, I don't agree with you, because you just said you would still have the ability. DPS couldn't keep your officers from patrolling the area as well. That's not what this bill does. So it doesn't do that. But I also want to say, because it's been mentioned a couple of times here, including by Chairman Turner, we got a new mayor. He's a good buddy of mine. He's a great guy. We have a new council, whatever. I think what this bill is trying to get to is that regardless of what that council or the mayor looks like, that we do take care of this area in a meaningful way. And yeah, I don't like what you guys, not you weren't even here. I don't like what the city council did back in 2020. That was terrible. And I was one of the joint authors on the bill that we then passed the next session that said you can't do that around the state of Texas. So I feel very strongly about this. This does not in any way undercut you, with all respect, at least what I'm suggesting, that we change the bill where you don't lose money, but that you use that money to expand your capabilities in the other parts of the city. And it does not limit, it does not mean that you all cannot patrol these areas. But it does protect you from future city councils that don't feel as strongly as Kirk Watson that we need a safe area around the Capitol. So, you know, there's no bigger supporter of law enforcement here than me. I promise you that. I've been here 31 years. Nobody that supports you guys more than I do. But our frustration with this city council at times has gotten us to where you have this legislation in front of us. And I hope it passes, but I hope that we can change it in a way that doesn't undermine your ability, but in fact it expands your ability to provide protection for the folks, the citizens of Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Frame. Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief, for being here. I'm questioning whether or not the author has talked to you about what you're implementing and what the city's doing. Have you all had a visit with him to?
I have not spoken to the
maybe
author.
share with him where you are and what you're doing as it relates to the improvements and adjustments to address what his concerns may be?
Oh, I'd totally be open to that, yes, but I have not spoken to him.
You have not spoken with him. Okay, do you think it would be helpful if he knew the kinds of plans you all have in place, the kinds of programs that you're implementing, so that there would not be this need for the state to intervene in what you do so well? I'm concerned that we all have responsibilities, and when we start usurping other people's responsibilities, I'm concerned about that. So I just want to make sure that maybe that would be helpful if he knew the kinds of plans that the city is implementing, the kinds of issues you're dealing to address these concerns he may have. Maybe that would relieve him of the need for the state to take on this new responsibility, because we suffer with some of the state's departments having the resources they need to do what they do, and the authority we've given them to implement. So I'm just wondering if that might be helpful. You think you would be able to help provide that information?
I would be more than happy to sit and talk with the author of this and explain what what we have going on in the department.
I think we're all concerned about safety, but I think we also have confidence in folks that are put in these positions who would like to see you be able to perform without our intervention. Unfortunately, all of us don't believe that the state's the only answer to everything. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Members, further questions for Chief Davis? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. Chair calls Judge Shepard. Mr. Shepard, the record shows you are a policy analyst, and you're representing the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and you are for the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Chairman King, esteemed members of this committee, I just want to say thank you all for allowing me to be here this morning. My name is Judge Shepard. I'm a policy analyst at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and I'm here to testify in support of HB 470. As you heard earlier, as far as some stats from U.S. World News as well as local articles, House Bill 470 seeks to expand the boundaries of the Capitol complex, introduce measures of modern security management such as regulation of unmanned aircraft within the boundaries, and establish an interlocal cooperation agreement with the City of Austin to delineate responsibilities, thus ensuring a seamless and effective approach to safeguarding this unique governmental hub. As this nice woman right here is passing, there is a map The blue there shows the current boundaries of the Capitol complex, with the exception of the William P. Clements building on West 15th Street. The white section would be the proposed expansion. HB 470 seeks to increase the boundaries as the following. The area bounded on the north by the outside curve of 10th Street, to the east on the outside curve of Brazos, on the south by Lady Bird Lake, and on the west by the outside curve of Colorado Street. This bill states that the Department of Public Safety will have primary responsibility for law enforcement and security services within the boundaries. It also requires DPS and the City of Austin to enter into an interlocal cooperation agreement. This agreement must include a calculation for DPS increased costs for this increased expansion. And from there, from that calculation, the comptroller will deduct that amount from the City of Austin's taxes and apply it as a credit to the General Revenue Fund. Funds then, under this credit, the General Revenue Fund may only be appropriated to the Department of Public Safety. From Lady Bird Lake up to 10th Street is essentially the front porch of the Texas Capitol. This expansion of the boundaries of the Capitol complex would ensure that Texans and other visitors to our great state may be able to walk up on the porch freely and safely. Granting DPS primary responsibility for this area would ease the burden faced by our brave yet understaffed Austin Police Department. In conclusion, passing this bill will not only strengthen the security and public safety measures, but also demonstrate our dedication to protecting all who work in, visit, and pass through the Capitol complex. I thank you all for this opportunity, and I look forward to any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Shepherd, members of questions, Mr. Raymond?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. You were listening to the earlier testimony. If this bill were to be changed to where any of the money that's being contemplated, taken from Austin, stayed with Austin, but only if they expanded their law enforcement capabilities, I'll put it that way, would you still be for the bill, or would you be against it at that point?
At the moment, I would like to obviously work with.
I understand.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
asking you a question. If we did what I'm suggesting, would you be against the bill at that point?
At the moment, I would hate to comment on that. I'd like to run it back up to my higher-ups as well as the author as well, but I would love to look forward to working with your office on
Yeah,
this.
this is based on, let's say the author agrees, okay, it makes sense. We've got enough money, the state has enough money, and so we don't need Austin's money. We'll let them keep it as long as they use it to expand law enforcement in the other areas. Take it to your higher-ups and ask them if they would still be for it. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the questions?
Yeah,
Mr.
just a quick one, Mr. Chairman, really quickly. So can you describe the current law enforcement presence in this, what we would call the Capitol complex?
Yes, sir. Currently, DPS has primary jurisdiction for the Capitol complex. However, with this expansion, they would also have primary responsibility. Sir?
My question's a little bit more granular. What are the patrol patterns currently?
No, sir. I have no data as far as the actual patrol patterns.
How much staffing does Austin PD have on the ground there? How many officers?
No, sir. I don't have that answer for you, but I would love to find out and get with you.
What
on
is
it.
the schedule of patrolling in the area?
No, sir. I don't have any data on this patrol schedules.
Have you asked Austin PD before you came to testify?
No, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Members, further questions? Oh, Mr. McQueenie.
Thank you, Chair. Does anybody, and maybe this is for Representative Tepper, does anybody have a projection of how much money this would impact the city of Austin by?
I don't think
Yeah.
Mr. Shepherd can answer that question.
No, sir. I don't have
By
any
the,
data
by
on
the
that.
blank look on his face, I'm telling you, he cannot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Members, further questions for Mr. Shepherd? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you all so very much.
Chair calls Eddie Garcia. Mr. Garcia, we show you're representing the city of Austin, and you are against the bill.
Yes, sir.
3 minutes.
So Chairman King and the rest of the committee, thank you for your time. My name is Eddie Garcia. I'm the Assistant City Manager over Public Safety, which includes law enforcement operations in the city of Austin. As you heard from Police Chief Davis when she added her testimony and the statistics, also present is our Homeless Strategy Office Director, David Gray, another new department that we have. First of all, I'll just start by saying that we understand the perceptions. We understand the perceptions that have been here in the city of Austin with regards to the fact that public safety has not always been prioritized. However, we have new leadership. We have Mayor Watson, City Manager Broadnex, a new police chief, and again, a homeless strategy officer. We have made downtown a top priority. I know Chief Davis has been here 6 months. I've been here 4. And coming here, we knew what our priorities would be, and downtown was definitely one of them. The leadership, the experience, having worked with data-based crime initiatives, evidence-based policing, working with criminologists, we've expanded our police presence downtown. We've launched new safety initiatives that you heard Chief Davis spoke about, particularly the 6th Street Safety Pilot Project, which has shown a great improvement in the time it's been open. Crime is down. And we're going to start a downtown P&I model in Austin. P&I stands for Place Network Investigations. It's a criminological term that really means about all city departments solving an issue. The police department is a cog in the wheel. We are not a solution to the problem. We are the Tylenol, we're the Advil you take to reduce a fever. We're not a cure to the illness. The cure to the illness is getting all city departments on board to solve a problem and to make downtown better, and that's what we're going to start doing, working with criminologists. We believe HB 470 undermines our progress, creates confusion, who's in charge, who responds. Again, as Chief Davis pointed out, and as some of you know me, I've been in law enforcement my entire life, and I'm a big morale for the troops and be behind it. Our officers are working hard, and we're seeing results. Our men and women need support. They've been through a lot. They've been vilified. They've not felt supported, and this isn't support. We need people to support us. We need people to believe in them. When we look at the old data, I will say with all due respect, I've worked with a lot of criminologists throughout my career, and there's not one that would predicate, a plan based on 3-year-old data. And I'll finish up real quick in conclusion. We're here fixing the problem. There's new city leadership. Give us a chance. And I think I heard a beep, so I guess my time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Anchia has a question.
Hey, Chief. It's good to see you. We miss you up in Dallas. You said you've had your whole life in law enforcement. How long has that been?
It would have been 33 years.
And just so women aren't the only ones who received this comment from the committee, you look really great, for 33 years in law enforcement. I want to make sure that we're dealing with with good facts. And I think you'll like some of my questioning. You may not like the second part because there's an admonition here. But when the statement is made that crime is out of control in Austin, the facts just don't support that. I've got facts in front of me from the city of Austin that violent crime has dropped 15.4% between 23 and 24, and almost 25%, 24.4 to be exact, between 22 and 24. So I just want to make sure we have the same baseline of facts. Are those yours as well? Do you share those facts?
That is my understanding as well, sir.
Okay. And can you describe the protocols for your working collaboratively with DPS currently? How does that happen?
Well, like most things, relationships aren't built in a vacuum. Not only with the relationships that exist here within the city of Austin and DPS, but also in my time as chief, working with DPS, the central chief here. We used to work together in Dallas. We have tremendous relationship. We pick up a phone when we need assistance. So there's the official way of officially asking for things and getting help, and then there's the unofficial phone calls that you make. And so, again, we're constantly in communication. And I don't think that we could have a better relationship, at least from the chief to myself with DPS with regards to when we need help.
And I'm going to drill down into that collaboration. Specifically, do you have like a written protocol where you're working on a joint basis, on a joint task force with the Capitol complex? Because even though we want to give great deference to the city of Austin, we also think it would be, to some of the other committee members' points, helpful to be collaborative, coordinating on a regular basis with respect to this footprint. Because after all, it is kind of our national mall here in the 8th largest economy in the world. Is there a formal protocol that you have in place?
I'm not familiar with anything in writing that we have in place.
Okay. The reason I say that is that, even people who are super sympathetic to Austin, who appreciate your work and the fact that violent crime has come down, I think the sense that you might be getting from some of us on this committee is, hey, it might be a good idea to work together. I don't want anything punitive I don't want us pulling money away from the city. But this is an important asset that would likely merit some enhanced collaboration. And so I just offer that as an admonition. I'm a great admirer of both the chief and your work. Miss you in Dallas. But, the Capitol complex should be a shining example, a referential point in the state of Texas for what we represent, how we express our values. And so I do share, having been here for 20 years, I do share some of the frustration with kind of just an overall challenges with petty crime. Less violent crime has gone down, but the challenges with the unhoused, which we also have in Dallas, so I'm not throwing stones at Austin, but I think something that requires a lot of attention from municipal governments throughout the state. So I just want to offer that up, as a gentle reminder that it might make sense for you to have sort of a written protocols to understand what coverage looks like, with DPS, so that we can do even better than we're doing. Because reductions are great, but the baseline is, and I think, Mr. Chairman, the chief wanted to come up and respond to my question. Do you mind calling her up just really quickly? She is nodding her head.
Can I finish with this witness? There's other questions for this witness.
I
and then we'll be
appreciate
glad
you.
to do that.
Thank you, Mr.
Ms.
Chairman.
Thompson.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Real quick. Sir, I will tell you this, there is absolutely no disagreement with regards to this should be the shining jewel. When it comes to issues in downtown, particularly as you spoke about our unhoused population, obviously mental illness plays an important role in that. And obviously, you will see some things coming up in this session with regards to things that can help public safety with regards to unhoused that also suffer from mental illness, that we could ask for your help also, and you'll get no disagreements. And I think the chief is here because we do have some agreements with DPS with regards to this footprint. And that's
Thanks,
what
Chief,
you're
and I
here to
appreciate your testimony today.
Ms. Thompson.
I just want to ask a question. How many years of law enforcement experience you have?
Started in 1992, so been a while.
So from your experience and your vantage point, if you needed additional help, based on your knowledge, experience, expertise, you would know when that moment would come, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have not seen that moment yet?
I have not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ram.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your many years of service. Representative Chair Davis and I first got elected in 1992. That's when we got here. You were listening to the earlier testimony. Do you know how much money we're talking about as far as what the bill's proposing and what that would equal in terms of taking away funds from the city of Austin and shift it over to the state? Do you have any idea?
I haven't heard specifically, but my understanding is it's significant.
Who told you it was significant?
In the conversations I had spoken, it's significant.
It would be good if somebody could resources on that because it's one of the concerns you have.
Absolutely.
And again, you probably heard me say that I'm going to talk to the author of the bill later to see if we can't convince him to let Austin keep that money, but only if Austin uses it for law enforcement, to expand law enforcement. Also, I just have to say, I appreciate your attitude and the chief's attitude and so forth about, and mentioning, oh, we have a new mayor, we have a new council, whatever. I think what this bill contemplates is that no matter who the council is, no matter what they look like, we don't want you all to, and again, I get your position, but later on to be saying, man, this new council, this new mayor, they're not as pro-law enforcement as Kirk Watson was. And I think that's what this bill contemplates. That's where it's coming from.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question for the Assistant City Manager as well. Has your office been in contact with the author? Has the author contacted the city to get any input from you guys?
If there was a contact in the city, it would be me, and I have not heard. I have not.
Okay. So, and the reason I think this is important is because as members of the legislature over my 30-plus years, as Richard Raymond mentioned, one of the challenges is how we work together. And so when we file legislation, we do it for a lot of reasons. And I think it's always helpful when you're going into someone else's jurisdiction to at least have a conversation with them regarding that. So I would encourage you to be receptive, because I'm sure after this hearing, they might want to come and visit with you to discuss the ins and outs. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to do a follow-up question later. I'd like DPS to come and tell us what their needs are as an agency, because we have some really critical areas in Dallas that are not being covered as it relates to just basic stuff like getting your driver's license. I don't know what your experiences are around the state, but we have lines, and DPS could be very well overwhelmed. So I'd like them to tell us what this does to them as well.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
to that end, Ms. Davis,
Thank you.
I don't think we have DPS here today, but we will make that
Well,
happen.
they could, yeah, thank you.
So, members, further questions, Mr. Garcia? Okay. You know, if you don't mind, just stay there while I recall Chief.
Yes, sir.
No, well.
Hello, sir.
Yep. Okay. Record shows that you are Lisa Davis, Chief Police and representing the city of Austin, and you are against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman.
Mr. Anchia had a question.
Thank you. And I maybe unfairly asked this question of Chief Garcia. I should have asked you, and I apologize. Can you speak to the protocols that are in place and your joint operations with DPS? What kind of coverage you have of this corridor and the activities that you are undertaking together?
So we know that there are, every weekend, almost every day, there are protests here on the Capitol grounds. We work closely with DPS in the ARIC system, which is our intel unit. So we work closely with the protests, working together collaboratively. When protesters move off the Capitol onto Congress, we work together for that. We're there to assist them when they need us. And not just there, but the highways. They're on the highways with us, doing work there. So we work in many areas. We have MOUs. We're federal partners on some federal task force, all of those things. So we work collectively together on a number of projects.
Got it. And just with respect to this corridor, because that is the subject of the bill.
Right.
Do you feel like you have joint operational coverage in collaboration with DPS, visibility all the way from the Capitol complex all the way down to the lake?
I do, and I also feel when we start as ACM talked about, when we move forward, when we start looking at our place network investigations and we're doing work in places, there's no doubt that DPS will be part of this team that we put together to address issues throughout this area.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you both.
Thank you. Remember, any further questions? Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question for either one of you, whoever's best suited to answer it. I was intending to ask this of DPS. I assume they would be here as a resource, but the Chairman just said they're not here this morning. Has the City of Austin had any conversations with DPS about this proposed legislation? And if so, has DPS indicated what this tab would work out to that the city would be billed for if this bill actually passed? Do either of you know?
I think there's been initial conversations, but they've been as of like yesterday. I don't think we have the exact numbers, but again, as I made mention before, we understand it would be significant, but we don't have the exact numbers.
Okay. Have they provided a ballpark at all, or?
Nothing official.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry,
All right.
sir.
Well, hopefully we could ask DPS that question. I think it's important that they be a resource to us.
We will make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, further questions of the witnesses? Seeing none, thank you both for being
Thank you.
here. Appreciate your testimony. Chair calls Michael Bullock. Mr. Bullock, the record shows that you're representing the Austin Police Association and you are neutral on the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. As you mentioned, I'm Michael Bullock. I'm the president for the Austin Police Association and an officer with the Austin Police Department. as its association representative. There's a lot that's been covered. Any criminal justice solution is a complex one, but there's a few things that I did want to address. First and foremost is something that you mentioned, Representative Raymond, was that poor decisions have been made by councils in the past, and we can't always guarantee what is going to happen in the future, and that is a concern that is top of mind for a lot of officers. We represent every rank within the Austin Police Association, but we're obviously very close to our line officers, and that is a sentiment that they do share. Mistakes have been made in the past by councils that resulted in defunding, that put us into a staffing kind of spiral. And then we've had a lot of other issues related to our district and county attorney that have had extreme impacts on morale. Yes, we do have new leadership that we are very excited about and happy to have, but we don't know how long that will last, and things can change. The primary concern that I have is yet again something that you mentioned, sir, which was the financial impact. What I do fear is that if a bill were to come, a financial impact were to come to the city, that ultimately the department would be the ones that are expected to foot that bill, which would result in a reduction of services rather than an increase. Now, with that being said, I also know that Representative Tepper did mention planned changes to the bill, and his staff has been talking with us about that to try to address those concerns. So I appreciate that. As the bill stands right now, that's just our primary concern, but I do appreciate his willingness to talk about that and be open to those conversations. One of the things that I do just want to point out is that, yes, we talk about crime statistics, but there is almost an unquantifiable thing in those statistics, which is that as a result of our staffing crisis, we have stopped responding to a large number of calls, or calls have gone unanswered and people become frustrated because of our lack of staffing. No fault of the department, but that's just kind of the reality of where we have been. So in some cases where it may look like crime goes down, that may not necessarily be the most accurate representation, because in many cases people don't report crime. Now that would typically apply to things like property crime, not so much with violent crime, because those do tend to be reported as they do happen. The last thing that I'll mention is, again, that criminal justice is a complex issue, and one thing that isn't addressed in this bill, as it's a separate issue, but is one that is paramount to being addressed, is the fact that if we have county and district attorneys who are not interested in prosecuting crime, it's not going to matter who is patrolling what area or who is assigned what part of the city. As we just saw over the weekend, we had a homicide that occurred, and the gentleman who was arrested for it had previously been charged for unlawfully carrying a weapon for deadly conduct.
Mr. Bullock.
Oh, I apologize, it went off.
We are on a little bit of a time constraint. Remember the questions for Mr. Bullock.
Chairman, I do.
Quickly, please.
I'll be quick,
Thank
but
you.
it's important. Thank you for opening the door on prosecutions. I've talked to several law enforcement officers, or PD, in Austin, and how frustrated they are with your prosecutors. And I want to tell you, members, I wish that we could expand this at least to us in terms of prosecutions, because you cannot imagine how frustrating it is to get a threat, as I got 4 years ago, where someone, and we knew who it was, and I took it to the county attorney, DPS actually took it to the county attorney, where someone specifically talked about cutting off certain parts of my body, very specific, and the county attorney just decided they weren't going to prosecute that. They just weren't going to chase. They knew who it was. You know how frustrating that is? So yeah, Carl, we should look at expanding the prosecution, give it to the Attorney General. I don't know, but that's BS, man.
Members' questions for the witness? Seeing none. Mr. Bullock, thank you for your testimony.
Appreciate it, sir.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 470? Seeing none, Chair recognizes Representative Tepper to close on House Bill 470 quickly.
Thank you, Chairman. I know we're under time constraint. I'm surprised I'm in this position, being up against the police chief of the city of Austin. I completely appreciate her service and her determination to improve her department. Her morale problem is not anything we've done. The morale problem is the leadership of the city. The new mayor has been back, and I was a Kirk Watson appointee. What people don't know is I used to live here. I managed 919 Congress. I was one of the property managers at 111 Congress. These properties pay millions of dollars, probably billions over 5 years in property taxes. There's plenty of money to fund this police department. It's not about the money, and it shouldn't be. And by the way, this is a neutral, that what they're taking off and patrolling these areas, they can put it back into other areas, and it'll be taken over by DPS and our budget. But I'm telling you now, we are not the problem of morale of the police department of the city. Their leadership is, and that's where the argument should be. We have a responsibility to our members and our staff and their safety. In just the last couple of weeks, I have witnessed screaming in front of the Capitol building. Homeless. The homeless policies here are abysmal. Any passive observer knows what's going on here. People caked in unmentionable things along Congress Avenue, in front of the Austin Club. The property managers are having a deal, and I was one of them. Needles, office creepers, which are thieves in our offices, they're tired of it. They're paying too much property taxes for too little services in this city. And frankly, it's a vote on it's a vote of no confidence in the leadership of the city. We don't want to take over the city. Right now, we just want to make sure our staff, our property, Congress Avenue, which is the front door to the state, is protected. I'd like to keep it there for now, Representative, with all due respect. And with that, I
Mr. Chairman,
close.
I ask a small one.
Ms. Thomas.
Did you visit with the police chief when you filed your bill?
We visited with their government relations personnel, as is the common thing to do. And if they were not informed
Did you
by their
visit with the
government, they
mayor's
can't even
office
get
when-
government relations going
Did you
correctly.
visit with the mayor's office people also?
We got with their government relations, which is supposed to disperse these requests to the various departments, and apparently they did not. This bill,
Did you visit with the
Representative, was
delegation
filed
of
in
also
November. This bill was
legislators
filed in
here?
November. There was plenty of heads up, but I've noticed that going on around the Capitol building, that if people are against your bill, they'll wait till the 11th hour to start visiting you and disagreeing with your bill when they had plenty of time to work with you over. I've got a water bill coming up. It's the same thing. They wait for the 11th hour and say, you didn't get in touch with them, you didn't work with them. Well, we've been speaking with the Police Association here, and we've been
delegation
speaking.
of Austin, the legislators here?
I did not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tepper. Members, further questions for Mr. Tepper? You close?
I close. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. If there's no objection, House Bill 470 will be left pending at this time. Is there objection? Chair hears none. House Bill 470 is left pending. Chair moves that the committee stand in recess until final adjournment, recess of the House, or during the bill referral if permission is granted. Is there objection? There's seeing none. The motion prevails. The committee stands in recess. Yes. As soon as we have a quorum.